So there's some teams in sports that just don't get it. And the San Francisco Giants, in my opinion, are absolutely clueless. So let's talk about that.
Hold up, wait until the whole team show up, yeah. I'm in Neverland, can't grow.
So remember the San Francisco Giants in 2010, 2012, and 2014, they totally took the entire sports world by storm. And it seemed like every single even season, the San Francisco Giants were going to find a way to get into the playoffs and just totally obliterate any team that got in their way. And that's how they were able to win 3 World Series in 6 years. But now, 6 years later, after the last World Series, they've had 3 losing seasons in a row. And now it's time to take a step back and look at what isn't working for this team. So they decided to take a step back and really sort of reevaluate what was happening in their front office last season. And that's when they decided to actually, in my opinion, make a smart decision in hiring, I think I'm saying his name right, I'm trying my best, Farhan Zaidi, but he was a general manager for the LA Dodgers for about 4 years. And, you know, really coming from that very powerhouse team that was very analytically driven with Andrew Feldman in the top, and that team was really able to build a lot of very meaningful and productive prospects throughout the time it seemed like that Farhan was there. And I really thought that he would be able to be a really good new young voice for the San Francisco Giants to really be able to really make this whole new culture and really sort of snap them into understanding that this team needs to sell. This team is too old. You got a lot of players that are underperforming, are getting paid way too much, and that are way past their prime. But you think that they're going to help you contend and really sort of, I guess, make this team back into what it was 5 years ago? No, that doesn't make any sense. And so last year this team went 77-85, and everybody was like, wow, like, especially at the trade deadline, nobody wanted to trade Madison Bumgarner because this team had this crazy winning streak. And then we got to take a step back and remember that they actually only won 2 months out of the season. So it was just so comical that, like, after 3 seasons of them being actually absolutely terrible, and me just looking at it from an MLB fan, like, what is this team doing? And now the only chance that you have, in my opinion, the best chance that you have to really solidify and, you know, sort of get ahead of the future was to trade Madison Bumgarner. But I guess I don't know anything. I guess it doesn't make absolutely any sense to want to make your team younger, better, and more productive for the future. But, you know, that's just me. But so, you know, it really didn't make any sense to me when Farhan said in the beginning of the season, you know, we're not sellers. Don't stop calling us sellers. We're going to do everything that we can to contend with the players that we do have. Because with a team that has lost the last 3 seasons, how do you expect, when you do absolutely nothing, 1, to the farm system, 2, to the pitching, that's been absolutely atrocious, and 3, to the offense that has absolutely nobody? I don't understand how you expect to contend against one of the toughest divisions in the league. And so, in my opinion, they actually did something smart as well this last season. They decided to hire a new general manager in Scott Harris, who was actually the assistant general manager and head of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs for a few amount of years. And, you know, he did have that sort of background of building up those prospects with Jed Hoyer and also being able to make the Cubs into a contention sort of team. But when you really look at people's different sort of background or track records, you really need to also think about what are the Cubs nowadays too. They spend a lot of money, they trade away all their prospects, you know, they're not really in that great a position. So, you know, you kind of need to really take that perspective into what Scott Harris's reputation is, and hopefully he's able to learn from those past mistakes and really be able to change this culture with Vahar in San Francisco to be able to make a young and productive and more analytical front office. Because I really think that this front office needs to wake up. They need to figure out that they have a lot of issues going on right now, and their best bet is to rebuild. See, like, especially as a very big MLB fan, like, it just stinks because, you know, as you can see from my hat, as you can see from back there, I'm a Boston Red Sox fan. You know, we've obviously had some up and down seasons in the last 10 years, but we've been able to win 4 World Series since 2000. So something's been working all right. And, you know, as a Boston fan, I'm very spoiled. So taking a look back as an MLB fan, it just really makes me sad, and it, in my opinion, really just stinks for the city of San Francisco after having such a successful stretch of years, and now your team just doesn't really seem to have the drive or motivation to want to try and contend. At least that's what it seems like from the outside. And now after having 3 losing tough seasons, and your fans are still trying to hold on to those home-driven, very fan popular players like Brendan Crawford, Madison Bumgarner, Buster Posey, those sort of players, and they're just not in their primes anymore, and they're just not able to produce how they were able to 4 or 5 years ago. And so, you know, it really is sad for that city to not really be able to have that excitement, and to really know what sort of direction their franchise is going in. Because most of the time when franchises have these awful seasons or have these sort of issues throughout these stretches of seasons, you know, the front office and the owners sort of take a step back and are like, which direction are we going in? Are we going to rebuild? Are we going to retool? Are we going to try and contend? Are we going to try and win now? You know, there's a lot of different directions that you can go in, but I feel like with this Giants team, they're in such a standstill. They're in the middle. They don't really know where they want to go. And I think it'll also be really interesting as well with the new hiring of Gabe Kapler as their new manager. I think he's going to really drive in a new culture like Vahar and Scott Harris have been trying to in these last few years. But I think Gabe Kapler is going to really put that competitive drive into the players and really do a good job over these next few years to develop these young players into very productive players, and also to be able to, you know, sort of believe in this vision that he has for this team. And I think Gabe Kapler is a really good hiring for them as well, after having such a stressful season last year with Bryce Harper and the new up-and-coming, exciting Philadelphia Phillies that didn't really, you know, live up to the expectations that everybody thought that they were going to. But I think this will be a really good next step in Gabe Kapler's general managerial career, and he'll, you know, learn a lot of new things throughout this new process. And so if you just look at the big contracts that the Giants do have to deal with over these next few years, it's really very eye-opening. And to start off, we're going to be talking about 30-year-old Evan Longoria. Remember that name? He was one of the best third basemen in the league 4 years ago for the Rays, and you just were so scared anytime this guy came up to the plate. And he also made some wizard plays over at the hot corner. But now that he's getting later into his 30s, you're really starting to see the decline, especially in the offense. And, you know, he's really not making that great decisions with the strike zone and with making contact. And that was one of his biggest issues over in Tampa. He had a big issue of striking out in these big sort of situations. And when the Giants are going to have to pay this guy $58 million till 2022, all right, we need to start thinking about maybe wanting to trade a few of these guys. Instead of you just trading these guys and finding a way to get some sort of, you know, young valued player or some sort of prospect capital out of it to be able to help you get something bigger. I don't know. You can't just have these guys be sitting out there rotting when they're 35, 36 years old, and you've just been waiting for them to actually do something for your team. And you're seeing it the same thing with Johnny Cueto. He has $49 million till 2021. And to 2021, and he's 33 years old, and he was injured all last season, and this guy's just not doing anything for you. But, you know, it was actually kind of interesting when the Giants did get Jeff Samardzija and Johnny Cueto 3 years ago, and you really looked at that rotation. It was like, wow, like, this team's going to be scary with Madison Bumgarner, Johnny Cueto, Jeff Samardzija, and you were really scared of that rotation. But now looking back at it, all this money that this team has to pay now, and without getting any sort of actual outcome or great return on these investments. It really stinks to see how it's all turning out. The team's most beloved player in Buster Posey, who's getting paid $45.8 million over the next 2 years, hasn't been doing anything over the last 3 years, unfortunately. You've just seen his offensive ability absolutely decline so bad, especially in the home run category. He only had 9 home runs at the start of the season last year, and it was just looking real scary for one of the top catching players in the MLB. But now that they have a guy in Joey Bart, who is the top prospect in their farm system, they need to really start thinking about taking Buster Posey and finding a different sort of destination for him, and doing their best to find any way to get some sort of prospect capital from Buster Posey. And then when you look at another guy like Brendan Crawford, he hasn't done anything on the offensive side either for the last few years, and he's in his late 30s as well. And so being able to find ways to use these very underperforming and high value players, overpaid players, and just finding a way to, get something out of them. Because if you just wait the next 2 years and they retire, well, there's $30 to $40 million that you just wasted without getting absolutely any return back for your investment. That absolutely makes zero sense to me. And so now when you're looking at one other guy that, in my opinion, could have the most value for this team, and I believe that they'd be able to get a lot in a trade for him, is 31-year-old Brandon Belt. Because really any team, in my opinion, still will do anything to get that power bat at first base. And especially 31 is still kind of young for a first baseman, especially a guy that is able to hit for nice power like Brandon Belt is. And he's also very good defensively. I think he'd be able to be a good fit for really any team that is looking for a very that is in hard need for a first baseman. I mean, he's only getting paid $30 million over the next 2 seasons, so that's $15 million. And most of the time, you're not gonna be able to find a mediocre to above average first baseman for under $15 to $20 million. So it would be a really good trade, in my opinion, for really any team. So now the player that I was talking about at the start of the video, that, oh my god, it was so agonizing to watch over the last 2 seasons, just from the last offseason in this trade deadline. Just, is Madison Bumgarner gonna go? Is he gonna get traded? They're not gonna trade him because they're winning now. They have a really big winning streak. It just didn't make any sense to me, especially with all the prospects that they could have gotten, all the different rumors, all the different scenarios that I saw. They were gonna get some top tier prospects. Guys that could totally change their entire future, their entire complexion of the next 4 to 5 years, and they just totally ignore it. They just totally miss the ball on it, and now they're gonna have to find a way to pay 5 years, $100 million to Madison Bumgarner, when, in my opinion, he's not even really worth that going into his 30-year-old season, because he hasn't been productive that he had been 4 years ago over the last 2 years, and his stats have really sort of dropped, and it just didn't really make any sense to me. That was their one opportunity to be able to actually do anything to change their future, and Farhan just totally missed the ball on it. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, especially since they were paying him $12 million a year. And now, like another guy, their top bullpen guy, and Will Smith, just got taken away from them, and he was one of the first free agent signings by the Atlanta Braves, and he got 3 years, $40 million. And it just doesn't make any sense to me, because that's another guy that they would also be able to have traded this trade deadline to be able to get a lot of prospects. And like I said before, they're just spending a lot of money and really getting no value out of their very expensive investments. And especially with a team that was looked at the start of the season with the 20th worst farm system in the MLB. One of the worst, 27 out of 30 teams. But luckily they were able to find a lot of low tier, overperforming prospects that were able to help their team by the end of the season get to ranked 14 out of 30 teams. But this is still a farm system that could have a lot of room for growth. And through these different players that they do have to be able to trade, I think that they'd be able to get a lot of good prospects to be able to help really sort of build that farm system into something that would be able to help them in the next 3 to 4 years. In my opinion, that makes sense, instead of just allowing your team to rot, keep on losing games, and just wasting your fans' time. It just makes no sense to me. So, they do have some guys like Tyler Beatty, like Mike Yastrzemski, that are actually very exciting young players that could really help them in the next few seasons. But, just looking at their depth chart, it was just very disgusting. It just made me cringe. I'm just like, what am I looking at? Like, this is an MLB team. Like, are you serious right now? This looks like a AAA team to me. This doesn't look like anything that I would even pay $10 to $15 to want to watch at a baseball stadium. And, it's just sad, especially for a team that has such a smart and, very experienced front office that just seems like they're just not using common sense. In my opinion, they should trade all these very high-priced, very old players that, in my opinion, are just rotting and not doing absolutely anything to help this team out. And they should just trade them for either prospects or younger low-level players that would be able to help them at some point in the future, and also be able to find some way to be able to shred this payroll to actually be able to use their money in a meaningful way to be able to get a lot of value out of the players that they're signing, because it seems like they're just throwing money out of nowhere and just seeing if anything would be able to help them contend. And that's just not how you're going to be able to win in the MLB, as we've been able to see it for the Nationals, as we've been able to see it for the Astros, and we've been able to see it for the Red Sox. That's just not how you win championships. So that was my little rant about the San Francisco Giants. I've been thinking about this and been agonizing about this topic for a long time. As you can probably notice, I was just very annoyed and just fed up with having to watch this from the outside as an MLB fan, because it just really stinks having to see that sort of franchise and that city have to suffer through the stupidity of their front office. So I hope that the team can figure their stuff out and can figure out how to and can figure out how to make this team into a competitive team again. And it will be really interesting what they do over this offseason, and it will be really interesting how the front office proceeds, especially with the new changes in the managerial position and in the GM position. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Was I right? Was I wrong? Is there anything that that you think as well about the Giants? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm going to be doing more of these videos about just my opinions on how different teams would be able to improve. And I just love making these sort of videos, just these little rants, just because it's really sort of fun for me to be able to research and analyze just what has been happening over the last few years. So I hope you guys did really like it. So I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Don't forget, go down and subscribe. Also, don't forget to follow my Instagram and my Twitter. I post a lot of stuff on both of those accounts every single day, talking about the top sports topics and giving my opinion and also asking for your opinion. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See ya.
The band, that's big views. Boarded the plane, won't be back to Maine. Now I can't camp it with you.